Epstein, the prince and the teenage girl. Why did the Metropolitan Police not pursue a full investigation after receiving a complaint about allegations in court papers a teenager was trafficked and then introduced to Prince Andrew? Good evening. Virginia ch4 is the woman who says she was trafficked as a teenager to London and then claims in court papers to have been forced to have sex with Prince Andrew. It was, she says, all part of a network run by the American financier and convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. He was in jail in New York facing new sex trafficking charges when he was found dead in his cell last week. Buckingham Palace reissued an emphatic denial that the prince had ever had any sexual contact with Miss ch4. Tonight, we can reveal the Metropolitan Police looked into the allegations after receiving a complaint. And we understand they even spoke to Miss ch4's lawyers, but decided not to investigate fully. Now that we know the FBI are taking all allegations against Epstein seriously, can British officers say the same?
Also tonight, 10 men and boys aged between 13 and 30 have been arrested on suspicion of murder after police officer PC Andrew Harper was killed while he attended reports of a burglary in Berkshire late last night. Hong Kong is bracing itself for another weekend of unrest as more mass demonstrations are planned. Across the border in mainland China, the riot police have been baring their teeth. But will they bite?
And in the words of that great sage and philosopher John McEnroe, you cannot be serious. Here in Denmark tonight, they're absorbing the news that President Trump may want to buy the Danes' vast slab of overseas territory, namely Greenland.
Also tonight, the Grime star Stormzy says he's funding the costs of 2 more students from minority backgrounds to study at Cambridge. Welcome philanthropy for the students, but how to tackle the real problem.
The issue with, structural racism and with access to higher education, it's not just a Cambridge problem, it's like a UK-wide problem.
Prince Andrew has always denied any sexual contact or relationship with the 17-year-old he was photographed with in London in 2001 with his arm around her waist. When Jeffrey Epstein died last week in his cell, his alleged victims in America said the financier had escaped justice. 10 years ago, he was allowed to take a plea bargain and received a short jail sentence, but he was facing more serious charges when he died. With the scale of his crimes becoming more apparent by the day, US authorities have faced stinging criticism for their failure to deliver justice sooner. Tonight, Channel 4 News can reveal that the Metropolitan Police decided not to conduct a full investigation into the serious allegations concerning Virginia ch4, despite receiving a complaint. Porrick O'Brien reports.
Jeffrey Epstein's death last weekend means, of course, the end of the criminal case against him involving the sex trafficking of young women. But it is far from the end of the matter. This programme has learned that the Metropolitan Police in London looked into allegations of trafficking made by one of the women at the heart of the Epstein story, but decided not to launch a full investigation. The question, why not? This now infamous photograph was taken in 2001. It shows Prince Andrew, a friend of Epstein, with an arm around a then 17-year-old Virginia Roberts. She alleges in court papers that Epstein flew her to London as part of his trafficking operation, and that the meeting was facilitated by Epstein's assistant, to the right in the photograph, Maxwell, at the house where she lived on this mews in Knightsbridge, London. Roberts, now 36, alleges that she had sex with Prince Andrew at a property on this street and on 2 other occasions. Both Prince Andrew and Maxwell have consistently denied these allegations. In 2015, a campaigner with the Child Abuse Survivors Charity here in London alerted the Metropolitan Police to the allegations made against Epstein. He was concerned about what was alleged to have happened on this street in Knightsbridge. Peter Saunders, the campaigner, forwarded a legal deposition that had previously been lodged in Florida to the Metropolitan Police because he was concerned over allegations that Epstein had been involved in the trafficking of minors for sex to Britain.
I read the papers. It gave me great cause for concern. I identified that there almost certainly were probably British victims here, and I passed the information that I had been sent from the States to the police at New Scotland Yard.
We also understand that in 2016 the Metropolitan Police and lawyers acting for Virginia Roberts, her married name now ch4, were in contact. So we asked the Met what action had been taken as a result of Saunders alerting them to the case. The Met responded saying that they'd received an allegation of
non-recent trafficking for sexual exploitation,
reviewed the
available evidence,
but took the decision
this would not progress to a full investigation.
The matter was closed. The questions then, to what extent did they review the evidence and why did they decide there was nothing more to pursue? Last Friday, a court in Florida released a huge tranche of documents from a defamation case brought by Virginia ch4 against Ghislaine Maxwell. It includes a flight log for Epstein's private jet nicknamed the Lolita Express, with initials showing Epstein, Maxwell and Virginia Roberts, her maiden name, landing at Luton Airport on March 2001. In that period, Miss ch4 claims Epstein made me have sex with Prince Andrew, that Prince Andrew guessed 17, the age she was at the time, and that Epstein paid her approximately $15,000. That money was for what I had done and to keep my mouth shut about, quote, working with the prince. And this liaison with Prince Andrew, she says, wasn't a one-off. I had sex with him 3 times, including one orgy. Buckingham Palace issued the following statement today.
It is emphatically denied that the Duke of York had any form of sexual contact or relationship with Virginia Roberts. Any claim to the contrary is false and without foundation.
Ghislaine Maxwell has also denied these allegations, and a court in the States recently decided not to include the detail of Virginia Roberts' claims about Prince Andrew in a recent case. With the death of Epstein, the focus will now turn to possible co-conspirators and to what authorities on both sides of the Atlantic did or did not do.
And Porrick O'Brien is with me now. Porrick.
Krish, I just wanted to, I thought it was important to say that as well as emphasising the fact that Prince Andrew was not aware of these allegations, Buckingham Palace were at pains also today to tell us that he wasn't aware of any of the alleged the allegations against Epstein in terms of the sex trafficking claims, but also around this question of why the Metropolitan Police didn't accelerate this into a full investigation. A number of things were happening in the Met at the time and in the country at the time. It was the peak of the Operation U-Tree. One of the possibilities also, of course, was that they didn't have enough evidence to escalate this to a full investigation. But I think what this whole story tells us is the sort of globalized nature of some of the abuse allegations being made around the world at the moment.
Well, let's go to Danny Isdale now, who is in New York. What reaction there?
Well, Krishnan, Virginia ch4 is in her mid-30s now. She lives a world away from all of this in the US. She left America when she was 19, moved to Australia, married an Australian man, had a family, built a life there off the coast of North Queensland. I spoke briefly last night with her husband. The couple have obviously had a very intense few weeks, and they've referred any and all questions to her legal team, which brings us here on the banks of the Hudson River in Manhattan to the legal offices of Boies Schiller Flexner. Now, her lawyers didn't want to be interviewed on camera, but gave us a statement about the Met Police's decision not to take the complaint further in 2017, and it reads: Virginia ch4 has been and remains hopeful that given all the factual evidence that is now in the public domain, the London authorities will view the abuse she suffered while in London at Ghislaine Maxwell's home as a serious investigative matter, and they would be prepared to prosecute and hold those responsible accountable, regardless of status or power. Jeffrey Epstein did not act alone in operating his international sex trafficking scheme. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell, as we've heard, has previously denied any and all wrongdoing. Earlier this week, after Epstein's suicide here in Manhattan, the US Attorney General called for further investigations and said any co-conspirators should not rest easy. Now, we know from from Virginia Giuffre's lawyers that she has not at this time filed a suit against Epstein's estate, but that other accusers have. I spoke a short time ago to another US attorney, Lisa Bloom, who represents 2 other Epstein accusers and is in talks with 5 more who have come forward. And she told us that she filed a New York federal suit yesterday against Epstein's estate and a female recruiter. She said both victims have chosen to remain anonymous. One was 18, the other 20 at the time, and that they will hold the recruiter responsible for her role in the trafficking scheme. But they haven't named her in the lawsuit because they aren't sure of her legal identity and because she may be a victim too. So a criminal case died here in Manhattan with Jeffrey Epstein on Saturday, but the civil cases are just beginning in this story that spans not just years, but continents too.
Danny Isdale reporting. Matt.